I'm Kerry and I work at SUBU, and today in this SUBU Fake Off video I'm going to show you how to make some chocolate chip cookies. It's a nice and easy, straightforward recipe and pretty much just uses things that hopefully you've already got in the cupboards, and it's fairly quick, so you can go from kind of craving a cookie to eating them in a fairly short amount of time. I will include the link for the recipe that I used so you can have a look at that as well. But yeah, as I said, we're going to kind of run through how to make them now. So here's all the ingredients that you're going to need. So what I've done for a bit of speed today is just weighed out those ingredients. So the ingredients that you just saw the photo for, I've already gone ahead and done the weighing out. So what we're going to need in terms of quantities is 200 grams of milk chocolate, 220 grams of self-raising flour. In this one I've got both of the sugars, and that's 110 grams of caster sugar and 115 grams of brown sugar. And then we've got 125 grams of butter, that's unsalted butter, and then we've got some actual salt, some vanilla extract and 1 egg. So, as I said, I've already weighed these out just to be a bit quicker, but what we're going to do on the first step of this is cream, kind of like you would for any cake or biscuit. We're going to cream together the butter and the sugar. So what I'm going to do now is add the butter to, I'm going to use a mixer like this, but you could use a hand whisk, or you could just kind of beat it together with a wooden spoon. Whatever you've kind of got accessible to you is absolutely fine. So as I said, I'm going to put this into the mixer first. So I have left this out of the fridge, so it's kind of gone hopefully to sort of room temperature, but just to make sure that it's exactly the sort of consistency we need, what I like to do first is just kind of beat it, just to make sure that it's nice and soft. So we'll do that now. Okay, so once we've given the butter a bit of a head start and we know that it's definitely nice and soft, we can then go ahead and add our sugars. So as I said, I've got both of them in here, but that was brown sugar and caster sugar. The recipe I think says use brown muscovado sugar or light brown, but kind of I think probably whatever brown sugar you've got, this is just soft light brown sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and add both of those into the mixer. And then what we're going to do now is just mix them until the consistency is really light and fluffy. I would always kind of suggest that you probably want to do it longer than you think it's going to need. So probably do this for sort of at least 5 minutes. Okay, so after about 5 minutes, hopefully the mixture, as we said, is kind of quite light and sort of fluffy-ish. Obviously because it's got 2 types of sugar in it, it's still going to be a little bit kind of grainy, but hopefully you should end up with something that looks like that. So as you can see, it has kind of a little bit paler in colour, which is exactly what you want. And as I said at the start, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can always just use a kind of hand electric whisk, or you could just do that same process and just beat the butter and sugar together with a wooden spoon. It will just take you a little bit longer. Okay, so once we're kind of happy that the butter and sugars are nicely creamed together, then we're going to add in the egg and 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract. So I'm just going to pop the egg straight in. There we go, just wipe my hands. And then we're going to measure in 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract. And that goes straight in. And then we're just going to again kind of beat that together. So this doesn't need to take very long at all, it's just to incorporate the egg into the mixture. And what sometimes I find that you do need to do is just kind of scrape down the sides of the bowl, because it does kind of get stuck a little bit. Okay, so once that's fully mixed in, you'll probably have kind of quite a sort of sloppy-ish looking mixture. So what we're now going to do is just add some of the salt into our flour. So the recipes normally sort of say about half a teaspoon of salt. I'm not going to measure it out, I'm just going to kind of go straight in. So 2 teaspoons of salt. You can leave out the salt if you wanted to, but actually I do think with most kind of baking things it does help because it just kind of brings out the kind of sweetness of the sugars. So if you can do, leave it in there. And what we're going to do again is just pop all of that flour straight into the mixer. There we go. And what we're going to do now again is just mix that and incorporate the flour into the rest of the mixture. Again, sometimes I think it's best to stop and try and just kind of scrape down the side of the bowl. Just really making sure that you're kind of getting all of the flour incorporated into the rest of the mixture. And you can already kind of tell at this stage that it's starting to kind of look like a cookie dough. Great stuff, so that's all incorporated now. So just give the whisk a good bang. Okay, so give it a quick mix. What you should now have is a cookie dough without any chocolate that looks like that. So as I said, you can already see that that's kind of formed the dough, so it is a nice and kind of quick recipe. So then what we're going to do is add our chocolate. So the recipe I'm using says 200 grams of milk chocolate, and that is what I am going to use today. But you could use any chocolate you wanted, dark or white, or sometimes a mixture of both is nice. Equally, you could maybe put half of the amount of chocolate in, so 100 grams, and then substitute in some nuts, like kind of white chocolate and macadamia or those kind of things. As long as you've kind of got your base dough recipe, you can pretty much kind of add anything you want to it really. Also what I've done is bought 200 gram bars of chocolate and then just chopped them up. I always like to do this because I kind of quite like the sort of chunkier bits of chocolate within a cookie rather than chips that sometimes just kind of melt away. But if you wanted to buy chocolate chips just to make your life a little bit easier, that's not a problem either at all. So what we're going to do then is just add the chocolate into the dough. And give it another quick whisk. This really won't take very long because you are just kind of working that chocolate through into the dough. You could even just not bother kind of popping it in the mixer and just kind of do it straight by hand. So just a couple of seconds just to work that chocolate through. And that's it, that's literally all it's going to take. Again, give the whisk a good bang to get everything off. It really is stuck in there. Try and get that middle bit out. Okay. So there we go. You should have a dough that looks like this. Okay, so now that we've made the dough itself, we need to roll it out into balls. So you can kind of almost do these to whatever size you want really, but most recipes and the one that I'm using suggest to kind of roll them into sort of walnut sized balls. So we're just going to take some of the dough mixture, it's quite soft, and as I said, just kind of roll it out into roughly sort of, I don't know, golf ball, kind of walnut sized balls. You don't have to be kind of particularly neat with this, but you just want to try and roughly kind of get them the same sort of size. You could weigh them out if you wanted to be really kind of precise, but I don't necessarily think that's kind of needed. You can sort of judge it by eye and by feel. So the size that I'm going to go with is about that. So I would say sort of, yeah, around kind of golf ball size. And then we're just going to pop them onto a baking tray. The baking tray that I've already got here, I've prepped it with some baking parchment, so just some kind of non-stick baking paper, and that's really good because the cookies will just kind of lift straight off of there. So we're just going to carry on until we've filled up the tray. These cookies do kind of spread quite a lot, so actually you can't really fit too many onto one baking tray, but what you can do is obviously kind of have a couple of different trays going at the same time, which will kind of get you there a little bit quicker. So we're going to just carry on with this. I would say I'm going to probably fit 5 onto this baking tray. So just sort of move them so they're kind of evenly spaced, but you are allowing kind of quite a lot of space between them for the cookies to kind of cook and spread out. I'm actually probably only going to cook about half of this batch today, and then with the rest I'm going to roll them and freeze them, because this mixture keeps really well in the freezer, so it just means that the next time you want some cookies you don't have to make them, you can just get them out of the freezer. So as you can see, I've kind of got about 5 cookies on the baking tray here, which are going to go into the oven. Now what I'm going to do with these at this stage is put them in the fridge. This isn't necessarily something that this recipe that we're using suggests, but something that quite a lot of other cookie recipes do. And you just want to put them in the fridge and make sure that the dough and the butter within the dough has gone a little bit harder. So that means that when you do put them in the oven, it takes them a little bit longer to kind of cook. So it means that they keep their shape a little bit better, rather than kind of spread all over the tin, and then you just get one giant cookie. So as I said, what I'm going to do now is just pop these into the fridge for about half an hour or so, 20 minutes, anything, just to kind of give that butter a chance to harden up a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do now. So the cookies have been in the fridge now for about 20 minutes, so they hopefully should be firming up a little bit. What we're going to do now is put the oven on just to heat up, so then in about 5 minutes time the cookies can go straight in. So we're going to preheat the oven at 200 degrees or 180 if you've got a fan oven, and that's gas mark 6. Okay, so I've just taken the cookie dough out of the fridge, and you can see that it's just gone that little bit harder. So as you said, that's going to be helpful in the baking because it's going to prevent them spreading too much. So now these are cold and the oven's on and nice and hot, I'm going to put them in. So I'm going to put them in for 8 minutes at the temperature that we heated the oven at. So I'm going to do it now. Okay, so the time has just gone off. That's the 8 minutes up, so I'm going to take the cookies out of the oven. Oh, they smell good. Okay, so as you can see, hopefully, that's what they look like when they come out of the oven. So they still look a little kind of soft, and if you touch them, they're still quite kind of soft around the edges. But as they cool, they will harden, and with these ones you want them to still be kind of quite chewy in the middle. If you do prefer cookies that are crunchy rather than chewy, then you can just add a couple of minutes onto the cooking time in the oven. But there we go, that's the chocolate chip cookie recipe all done. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you'll kind of have a go and bake some yourself and enjoy them. But yeah, thank you very much.